In this episode of The Backyard Brewer, we're brewing a German Leichtbier. Okay, let's start out by going through the recipe. Now, German Leichtbier, as the name sounds, it's a light German lager. It's supposed to be very, very delicate. If we look at the BJCP style guides, it's a pale, highly attenuated, light-bodied German lager with lower alcohol and calories than standard strength beers, moderately bitter. With noticeable malt and hop flavours, the beer is still interesting to drink. So we want some of that hoppiness through, but we want the malt to shine through as well. Now on this, we're looking at 8.4 kilos of Gladfield German Pilsner malt and 400 grams of Victory malt, which is a biscuit malt. The original gravity is 1034 and final gravity of 1008, giving us an ABV of 3.4%. So that's around about a mid-strength beer here in Australia. They're generally around 3.5. So anything that you can think of, like your 4X Gold, a Great Northern Super Crisp, they're usually around that 3.5% alcohol. This, however, will be a much nicer beer. It will be more interesting. It'll have some of those malt characteristics as well as some of the hops as well. So what are we using for hops? Well, we've got 65 grams of Hallertau Mittelfrüh at 60 minutes in the boil. We've got 80 grams of Saaz at 2 minutes in the boil. 40 grams of Hallertau then as a hop stand at 90 degrees Celsius. So that gives us a total IBU of 24. So not overly hoppy, but it'll give it some interesting hop characteristic. The recipe called for 2 packs of Mangrove Jack's M76 Bavarian Lager yeast. I've got a 3 litre starter on for that. A low gravity starter, it's 1005. Following on the back of some of the stuff that I've been reading and a recent Brewlosophy episode where they compared high gravity and low gravity starters and how they turned out. It also has a little bit of lactic acid in it. I'll wait until I do a pH test to see how much lactic acid I put in. Strike temperature of 71 degrees. We're at 71 now. We're at 71.5. The mash profile here is 66 Celsius for 60 minutes and then mash out at 76. I've downloaded a profile onto here that I like to use. It gives more fermentability. It does a beta amylase step at 65, then an alpha amylase step at 68, a second alpha amylase at 70, and then mash out at 75. So I'm going to download that profile and put it on here, and that way the profile will take care of itself. I don't have to set timers to come out and change temperatures. It'll automatically ramp up, and all I need to do is come out at the end. I've set alarms on there, so it will tell me when it hits each mash step. I can keep an eye on that. But now let's grab our grain and mash in. The other thing worth mentioning is that the recipe, I'm not sure if I set my profile for this up correctly, but because I'm doing a 60 litre batch with 8.8 kilos of grain, it told me to mash in with 20 litres of water, then sparge with 32, and then do a 15 litre top up. Now, because this holds a lot more, I'm going to change that around a little bit. I'm actually mashing in with 50 litres of water, and then I'm going to do a 30 litre sparge. So that's a little bit different. 8.8 kilos from Hoppy Days down at Virginia. I got them to mill the grain. It's a coarse setting because Brewzillas and Grainfathers and things like that, you use a coarse setting rather than a fine setting that you would use on a brew in a bag. And still, I don't know what it is. A lot of these calculators, the temperature calculators, you know, where it says to mash in at 71 because your grain's going to drop the temperature. Well, the temperature's dropped a degree, so it's a little high at the moment. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more water in there just to bring the temperature of that down. And what I'm going to do is just download a profile. So you can see there, start profile, amylase and mash out is what it's called. And that's select to start profile. Okay, so it's just alerting me that the beta amylase step has started. And it sent me a message to my watch as well. The Brewzilla's just sent me a message, or the profile has, the wrapped profile, saying that the profile's finished running. And I got alerts all throughout that to say, okay, it's now stepping up to do the beta amylase, the alpha amylase, the second alpha amylase, the mash out. So all along, it's just been letting me know exactly what's happening, which is really cool. So now it's ready for sparging. Our sparge water is heated to 70. Okay, lift it up a little at a time, let some of that water drain out. Okay, so I've just taken a sample from the tap on the front. Okay. Just get that to cool down a bit. The rest of that can go back in. We're a little high, we've still got more water to put in. It's 1040 at the moment. We're aiming for 1031. Okay, so I've just let that sparge drain through. I'll check the levels again, check the specific gravity again, and see what we need to do to get this beer finished. It's pretty much spot on for volume, it's 70 litres. I'll just take a sample. I'm just going to run a couple of cups through this because the wort that would have been in the pipes would have been pre-sparge. And we've hit our numbers exactly. 1031. I've adjusted the hops, the alpha acids on the hops that I got, it was 5.7, the recipe was written for 4.8. So there's 55 grams of Hallertau going in at the start of the boil. That is quite a vigorous boil. Hop stand is done. I'm just going to cool it down in the vessel first. I can usually do a single pass into a fermenter, but because this is a lager, I want to take the temperature right down. So I'm going to cool it down to about 50 in the vessel, and then once it hits 50, then I'll do the single pass into the fermenters. This shouldn't take too long. It's dropping quite quickly. Here's my yeast starter straight off the stir plate. This has been going for as a 1.005 specific gravity, just plain sugar. 2 packs of yeast, and it's been going for about 5 or 6 hours now, so it's doing pretty well. Now, these fermenters are pretty full, but I am going to be fermenting under pressure, so I'm not too worried about them being overfilled. The pressure should help keep the krausen down. There we have it, another brew day done, and 2 very full fermenters. I'm fermenting under pressure so that this comes out as a really nice, clean, crisp lager. And I'm going to be fermenting at cooler temperatures, so I'm not too worried about krausen. You can see On there is already yeast activity thanks to using a starter. This one, oh yeah, a little bit too. And now for the unveiling. Well, the appearance, I have to say the head is looking really nice. It's quite white and fluffy. It's well structured. It's lasting quite a while. There is quite a bit of carbonation in there. It's quite nicely carbonated and it is very see-through. So all 3 points covered there. That's really nice. On the nose, it's hoppy. It doesn't have those floral smells or those woody smells, but it is quite obviously hoppy. It smells to me like a Pilsner. Yeah, that's the old style Pilsner smell that I remember from my childhood. Quite nice, quite pleasant. The head is still there, which is quite good. And now the tasting. It's quite nice, it's very drinkable. It's light-bodied, which you expect. It's quite a low, it was a low starter gravity, it was 1034, but it finished quite dry. It's only 3.3% alcohol from memory. I think that's what it turned out. You're getting that malty flavour, a little bit of the biscuity tones. Very crushable, as you can tell. It's a very easy to drink style. It's quite nice for an afternoon sipper. You know, at the end of the day, you get home, you just want to take the dust out of the back of your throat. It's easy to drink. That's going to be very popular. Overall, I'm very happy with that as a first attempt at a German light lager. Definitely something I will be trying again. Definitely something that'll be a regular in the beer fridge. What I haven't spoken about yet is the fermentation. So primary fermentation for this took 9 days. So from start to finish, 9 days, over and done with. Not surprising because it's only a 1034 starting gravity. The yeast was quite active. There was a bit of a krausen to start with, but fermenting under pressure helped to control that, and fermenting at those colder temperatures, 11 degrees for primary, helped control it as well. After the 9 days, temperature ramped up to 18 Celsius, and we did a diacetyl rest. Diacetyl in some beers can throw an off flavour, not unsimilar to butterscotch. Definitely no hint of that in here at all. The first time I tasted this, there was a hint of sulphur on the nose, but that seems to have gone now. That seems to have settled down. Low levels of sulphur aren't unexpected in a German style, but there's no hint of that now. At the end of the 5 days DA rest, it was chilled down to 1 Celsius for another 9 days. And at the end of that 9 days, I kegged it. So there were 2 kegs worth, 2 full kegs. There were 6 bottles, which are bottle fermenting now. And there are nearly 12 cans. Half the batch was fermented under pressure, the other half wasn't. The reason being that the second all-rounder developed a bit of a leak in it, so the gases escaped. That's the one that I threw into the bottles for bottle conditioning and also into the second keg. The second keg has been pressurised and is sitting in my fermentation closet.
The rest of it's been sitting in the fridge. I did a forced carb for 24 hours at 30 psi. Knocked that back to serving pressure, which for me is 10 psi. It's serving quite nicely. The lacing, as you can see, is still quite good. And it's been in the kegerator for 2 weeks now. It's still quite a young beer for a lager. For me, I can leave lagers sitting around for 6 to 8 weeks before I even touch them. But given that the only other beer I have on tap at the moment is the pale ale, I needed something else in there just to break that up a little bit. And I'm glad I did. It's quite a nice beer. But this will definitely improve with age as well. That's the end of our German Leichtbier episode. Definitely a recipe that I'll be holding on to and doing again. Click the like button. It really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. It helps us get out there to other YouTubers who are interested in home brewing and provide them with some of this information as well. Also, you can click the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you'll find out when we've got new content coming out. And finally, enjoy your hobby, but drink responsibly. Prost.